So right now, the S&P 500 is absolutely smashing it. You can see even today, it is up by 0.2%. Over the past month, up by over 3.6%. Now, the 6-month return is absolutely crazy, up by 17.1%. And over the past year, including the dip that we saw, which was around 20%, the S&P 500 is up by 16.3%. Now, even if you are a UK investor, you could have benefited from this amazing incline of the S&P 500. Obviously, this is not financial advice as we're looking backwards and the future performance is up in the year. But you can see with this fund here, the iShares Core S&P 500, which is a hedged version of the S&P 500. Over the past year, we are up by over 18%, which is staggering. Even when we look at the past month's performance, it is up by over 3.4%. But had you not invested into a hedged version of the S&P 500, today you would see that the S&P 500 is at all-time highs, even with these ETFs that allow UK investors to invest into the S&P 500, like the famous Vanguard S&P 500. And even with the difference in currency performance over the past year, a fund like this would have returned you 15%. But the real question is, how did we even get here? How is the S&P 500 exceeding every expectation and then some with no signs of stopping? In this video, I wanted to have a chat with you guys. Let's look at the past year with the S&P 500, what's been happening, the valuations that we've been given, and what maybe we can possibly expect from the future, although I'm not a fortune teller. Now, as always, I'm using the Trading 212 app to showcase most of this. So if you would like to sign up to Trading 212 and receive a free fractional share worth up to £100, all you have to do is to either click the link in the description box down below or head over and press this 3 horizontal line menu over here. Scroll all the way down until you see the section use promo code. And in this section, just enter my code JUBAIR and you should receive a free fractional share. So the past year with the S&P 500 has been absolutely crazy. We are in September right now. And as you can see, we've had one of the best Septembers in a very long time. Typically, a lot of people expect Septembers to be one of the months where, there is a sell-off of the holdings. A lot of people working in the city come back from their holidays and they do a bit of shedding of their portfolios. Not only have we survived the beginning of September, but we've gone through the first Fed interest rate cut. Granted, it was only 0.25%, but this signals that further rate cuts may be in the short-term future. We don't know if it's going to be the next time or the time after that, but it's widely expected that the interest rates are going to come down, and the stock market, especially the S&P 500, loves lower interest rates. Now, with lower interest rates, the cost of borrowing becomes cheaper. So you can imagine the companies in the S&P 500 or any other index for that matter will be able to profit more. They could leverage debt more to their favor instead of the bank's favor. And ultimately, investors look into the future and it looks like things may be better with a lower interest environment. So as we stand right now, the S&P 500 is over 6,640 points, which is absolutely bonkers. If you had asked me last year, I would not have given this, probably even as a guess for next year. Now, especially important as we look back is what happened in March. This is where the tariffs were leading headlines all around the world, where the President of the United States of America was imposing ridiculous tariffs across the world. The faith in the US government really suffered at that point, and as you can see, there was a huge decline. I say huge, but actually it was only around 20% if I can actually put my fingers here, but I probably can't. Now, during this 20% decline, a lot of people sold out, and this is a mix between institutional investors, which are companies and large corporations, and retail investors like you and I. Now, retail investing has been increasing year on year, and the average investor is investing more into passive index funds, especially the S&P 500. Now, that is important because it's not just now institutional investors who are moving markets. When retail investors get flustered, they can also move markets, as you can see here. But this dip did not continue for long. And as you can see, it took only a matter of weeks, literally, for it to recover. And since the recovery, we are up by over 10%. Now, if you would have asked me at any point, should you invest into the S&P 500? Long term, of course, yes. Why not? Because of the proven history. And of course, that doesn't mean much going forward. But the S&P 500 has been an index which I have been investing in since basically I started this channel. Now, when we look at valuations, we can see that the S&P 500 is very overvalued. We can see from history, from the 1880, the Shiller PE ratio shows us that there was only one time in history where the S&P 500 was more overvalued, and that was right at the end of 1999. And if you didn't know, there was a pretty big crash after that. As you can see, the S&P 500 corrects itself and becomes less overvalued. But these metrics, in my opinion, only tell us so much. The S&P 500 has been overvalued for quite a bit now. You can see since around 2009, after the great financial crisis, it leapt forward quite a bit. But of course, since 2009, the S&P 500 is up by around 700%. So obviously, the numbers don't really mean much in terms of, valuations. Valuations meaning when it's overvalued, it's going to crash. It is not an indicator for that, in my opinion, or it's not a reliable indicator. So essentially, even if the numbers say that something is overvalued, you can use the famous saying to put your money where your mouth is. So instead of relying on just quotes, we can follow where the money goes, and the money is literally being pumped into passive index funds such as the S&P 500, and not even just the index funds, because it is being pumped into the companies. And this is one of the points of contention with many investors, to not put all of their eggs into the S&P 500. Let me just explain what I mean. Now, on a fund like the iShares Core S&P 500 on Trading 212, if you just scroll down, you can have a look at the fund allocation, and the S&P 500 as it is suffers from what we call concentration risk. Now, let me explain. So about 70% of the performance that we've seen recently of the S&P 500 comes from only 30% of the companies in the S&P 500. This means that if the top companies, something happens to them, then the S&P 500 is going to suffer immensely. Now, when we look at the top 30% of the S&P 500, we can see it's pretty much in the top 10 companies of the S&P 500. Now, each ETF will vary bit by bit, but we can see Nvidia has a humongous weighting of over 7%, Microsoft over 6%, Apple at 6%. It starts to slow down afterwards, but we can see just the top 3 companies, they amount to over 20% of the total holdings of the S&P 500. Now, if you're buying shares in the S&P 500 over the short term, you're putting a lot of faith into Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple. Now, if I just go over to Nvidia, which is one of the biggest companies of the S&P 500, we can see over the past week there has been immense volatility, basically trading sideways now, but some of these dips were absolutely huge. Now, investing in the S&P 500 these days means you are at a high concentration risk. If these top 3 companies went bust, then the performance of the S&P 500 would suffer. Now, a lot of people do get a part of the diversification of the S&P 500 a little bit twisted, in my opinion. It is true that the companies can be replaced in the S&P 500 if they're underperforming. But if you have 3 companies that have made up all the gains and then they crash, it's going to take a lot of replacement for you to get back to where you were. In fact, you're not really going to be getting back those gains anytime soon, because these are the top weighted companies in the United States of America in the first place. And obviously the S&P 500 is very focused towards technology right now, and technology of course is booming. We're going to need technology in the future, but one thing people overlook may be competition. If another economy apart from the United States of America, if they become more advanced in technology, they can severely undercut the prices from the likes of companies like Nvidia. And essentially, why would you want to pay 10 times more with Nvidia when you can go with a possible Chinese company which will do the same thing? And of course, with the S&P 500, you're getting 100% weighting in the United States of America, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. Most people do think, including myself actually, that the USA is going to be at the forefront of economic growth for at least the next couple of years. We don't actually know what the future holds, so this is just pure speculation. Now, if you were to ask me where the S&P 500 may go over the short term, let's say over the next year, of course I can't give you a real answer because it's impossible for me to tell, but based on what we're seeing so far, it wouldn't be out of the question to assume that we will probably see some more growth because of the lower interest environment and the fact that the momentum is there and these tech companies are still producing good earnings. And earnings are very important. If the companies aren't producing good earnings, then the stock prices are probably going to go down. Now, speaking of earnings, there is extremely high expectations because, as we've spoken about, the price to earnings ratio is high. That is the amount that investors are willing to pay based on how much a company actually earns. If Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple altogether post bad earnings, it's going to cause a cascade and the faith in technology overall may be diminished. So make sure to check out some of my other videos and I'll see you in the next video.